You know, we had an amazing election a year ago last November, where we elected the first African-American president. And Democrats won a tremendous victory in Michigan, in the U.S. House of Representatives, and in the U.S. State Senate. We had 60 votes in the State Senate. We have a majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. This country voted for change because we know that we have to make change in this country to make our nation strong and to address a lot of the fundamental issues that we're facing as a nation. And there are four major areas that we needed to address. One, of course, is healthcare reform, which a lot of us have been working very hard for. But we also need to have energy reform as well, because we're too dependent on the Middle East for oil. We have global warming, and we need to develop green jobs agenda. We have immigration issues we have to reform. Immigration reform is absolutely critical for this nation. And finally, we voted for change in terms of our economic system. We need to create jobs. We have tremendous unemployment. We have a tremendous recession in our hands. And we need to get jobs and get Michigan and get the rest of the country working again. So these are the four major campaigns. But we have a problem. The problem is that we're not seeing as much activity at the national level as I think we have the right to expect. And there are any number of reasons for that. But we're here today. We organized this meeting because we need to send Washington a very strong signal that the Democrats are in power in Washington. We have a Democratic president who campaigned on the need for change, and we need to, in fact, fulfill those promises. Otherwise, people, in fact, become disillusioned and get disenchanted with politics. So we're here tonight to rally and to encourage our members in Washington to go back to Washington and tell the Democratic leadership that we have to move with urgency and we have to move with passion to address these issues. But the one thing we're not here for is we're not here to beat up on our Democratic friends that are trying to do the best they can. And the Michigan Democratic delegation has been very, very good on the majority of our issues. And we're very blessed. And we're very blessed to be in the congressional district of Congressman Sander Levin, who has joined us. So our program this evening is the following. We're going to have some speakers representing each of these four major campaigns to speak. And then we're going to have Congress and staff from Congress, if they feel comfortable, in sharing their comments with us about what they're hearing from all of us. And then we're going to have an opportunity for everybody in the audience to either ask questions, to make comments, to talk about the issues that are important to you, as an opportunity for you to share your thoughts and opinions. Now, we're going to have to go, unfortunately, a little bit out of order because Congressman Levin was very happy to join us, but he has another event he has to go back to in Fraser. And so what I want to do is now that Sandy has heard why we're here and he's seen our banner about call for action, I want to give Sandy right now an opportunity to address the crowd and to share with us what is happening in Washington. And again, our goal tonight is Sandy understands these issues. He's voted the right way on health care. He's voted the right way on energy reform in the House. But now we need Sandy to go back and tell his other Democratic colleagues in Washington, and especially Nancy Pelosi, but also his colleagues in the U.S. Senate. Now, I'm not particularly concerned about Sandy's brother, Senator Carl Levin, who has also been excellent on these issues. Who already have voted on these issues tell their colleagues in the Senate that they have to take action as well. Because the reason why we elect the Democrats, it's a wonderful feeling when we elect them on election night. But the other half of the coin is equally important, is that there are lots of middle middle-class working people in this country that are hurting. We need to pass legislation to help people with these issues and help them with our problems and to make this country stronger for our children and for the future. That's why we're here. So let's call upon Congressman Sandy Levin right now and ask him to address us about how we can tell us big country women here after Sarah. Let's give him a large round of applause.
Thanks, John. Hi.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah, hi, low, hi. I'm glad to be here. I'm going to be going to Fraser as an effort to try to outreach to constituents, to try to talk with them and really figure out what's going on in this country. It isn't easy, I think, to be sure. When, for some people, Sarah Palin becomes a heroine, I mean this seriously, I think it says something, but we're not quite sure what it says. How many people really share the point of view? And so I'm going to be leaving to do that as part of an effort to outreach. And so when I go back to Washington, I have a feel for where we go from here. So let me just start. I read just a couple days ago some facts about unemployment in this country. There's a lot of unrest, as there should be. Growth has now begun. We have to remember that the president came to office with a mess, not only for him, but for this country. And the job was to address this and to begin to pull us back from the abyss. And the figures I want to cite show are one example of the challenge that we have faced here. This is from a recent study on unemployment compensation. We know what the figure is in the country, about 10%. In Michigan, about 15%. But these are bulk figures. But when you break down the figures in this country by income, the figures become even more startling. For households with household income of $150,000 or more, the unemployment rate during the quarter that was involved, the fourth quarter, was guess what?
3%.
3%. 3.2%. For those, the next highest, 100,000 to 150,000, it was 4%. For those in the lowest quintile, essentially 12,005 or less, the unemployment rate was what? 31%.
45%.
What?
Detroit is 45%.
I know. And remember, these are the unemployment figures. And if you take into account underemployment, and you take into account those who have stopped looking for work who are not included in the unemployment figures, it's even worse. And for those with income between $12,500 to $20,000, the unemployment rate is 19%, really higher. And so these bulk figures really understate the employment crisis that we have in this country and that was inherited by President Obama and those of us in the Congress. And so, if people say the #1 job at this moment is to get America back to work, that's absolutely critical and true, and that's what we have to do when we go back to Washington. One of the challenges that's faced, you probably read about this, was how we get 60 votes in the Senate. We